What were your expectations prior to coming back, and how have they been met or altered?
You know, I was curious to see how things had changed, if they had, and I didn't expect them to have changed very much. I thought everything was more or less the same, and on the surface they are, I find, but when you scratch beneath the surface, everything has changed. So the roads, the absence of horses, the prevalence of 4x4s. Doctor's hour doesn't exist anymore as a concept, which was I think it was between 10 and 11 o'clock every day. You could call in and report your ailments with the doctor on a public line. So everybody knew everything about how everybody was doing around the islands, right? That doesn't exist anymore. And you have a proper hospital, and people we speak to feel that they are getting excellent health care, and if they need to, they go to Montevideo or back to the UK. So that's such a big one. You fly over the islands, and there are roads wherever you go, and the children here who want to or are able to, they are free to go to the UK, free university, things like that. It was, at best, there was a traveling teacher if you lived out on the island.
You mentioned about your father's account. How have his experiences compared to your own whilst revisiting here?
So he was a nature and wildlife photographer. I'm a diplomat. So I think his experience was very much about the penguins, the birds, the tussock grass, and so on. So and my experience has really been the 35 or so interviews and conversations that my friend Carl and I have had during this week, trying to understand what's the Falkland Island spirit, what is it to be a Falkland Islander, how have things changed, and has something gone missing in this transformation that the islands have gone through. That's what I've really enjoyed, and I love the fact that people have opened up so generously, not on camera, but off camera. Yeah. They really wanted to share their story, and that's been wonderful.
Could you tell us more about your father and your mother and their experiences here?
So my mother was a professional singer and actress. So she came from that slightly fake world where it's all staged and nice, and they were fairly newly married when we moved down here. Not newly, but they'd only been together 4 or 5 years, and so my dad drags her down here, and he gives her a training as a sound technician. I was a bit surprised how well she seems to have adapted to living here in the Falklands, and then she threw herself into it, and she performed at the midnight mass at Christmas, and one of the people that we spoke to, Derek Luxton, he said, I was 16 at the time during your visit. My one memory was when your mother sang in the cathedral. And she sang Silent Night, and I had hair standing up on my arms. Like, that's really special. It wasn't just about my dad, it was also about her.
People are excited to talk to you, and they've welcomed you into their homes and spoke to you, but how has that been for you to experience a community like that?
The sense of community here, the warmth, which easily gets lost. I've lived in New York for many years, and it's just, you don't know your neighbor, and here everybody cares about you and opens their homes, and so that warm embrace that we have felt, and I'm hoping to take a little bit of that away with me and apply to where I live.
You spoke about your companion for this trip, of filmmaker Carl Roth. Can you speak about his involvement in the expedition and what he's been here to do as well?
So I had this idea to do what I call images of hope, to do touchdowns in places that my father documented in the 60s in his books and in his films, and to look at, for each of those locations, see what does it look like now, 55 years later. And I started talking to Carl half a year ago, and we decided to have this as one of the places where we would try to identify some images of hope. And he latched onto it as a documentary filmmaker, and he has a very personal way of doing his films, and I hope it would be well received when it comes out in June.
What are the other places that you're visiting for this documentary?
The Galapagos and East Africa, focus on Kenya, and then I hope to do the Arctic, focusing on Alaska.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What are the main takeaways from your trip?
Taking a step back, I think I'm trying to identify three. I think I'm going for three things. One is what I've already mentioned, the sense of community that you feel here, and how that sense of community can survive during this transformation and this growth phase that the islands are undergoing. So that's one. The second is the resilience of the people, how the people and the islands have adapted to changing circumstances in a very impressive way. And the third is what we already talked a little bit about, the harmony with nature, living in harmony with nature, where I get the sense that the islanders are doing much better today than they were 50 years ago. And I love to look at the example of how the natural resources around the islands, the fishing rights, are managed in a very scientific, very rigorous way for long-term sustainability of the fishing industry.
And did you enjoy yourself? Will you be back?
I certainly enjoyed myself. We both had almost a spiritual moment here. I think both Carl and I were walking around and we had to pinch our arms thinking how fortunate we are to be able to be here. And I want to come back, and I'm planning to come back in 4 or 5 years and take a small tour group with me.
Fantastic. That's everything I've got for you, unless you wanted to add anything else.
No, that's good.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.